About 100 years ago or so, there was a village in western Russia, a village made up entirely of Jews. And one day as they were going about doing their things, the woman collecting her eggs, a tailor sewing, the shoemaker doing what he does, they saw coming down the road a procession. And as they watched it, they could see coming closer to their village was none other than the Tsar of Russia himself. And that line made its way into the center square of the village, and the horses on the very front with the trumpeters. And then other horses had soldiers who stepped down, and they went over and they unloaded a tent. And they put a tent up right there in the center plaza of the town. And then other soldiers came and they put up steps and they opened up the carriage, and then the Tsar of Russia himself came out. And he came and he took his spot on a stool in front of that tent. And they assembled all of the village's Jews in front of him. And when everyone was there, the Tsar said, "I, the Tsar of Holy Mother Russia, do declare that all of the Jews in this village must leave Russia immediately." Well, you can imagine the pain that rippled through the crowd that day as they looked at one another. Some of them had been there, their families, for many generations. But then the Tsar said, "However, I am a sporting man, so I will offer you this. If any one of you Jews will debate me and you win, you can all stay. But if any one of you attempts to debate me and you lose..." Well, immediately, everyone in the village turned to the rabbi because they all knew that the rabbi was the wisest one in the village. And they said, "Rabbi, you debate the Tsar. You're the wisest one in the village." And the rabbi said, "I am indeed wise, and in my wisdom, I think I'll get a job someplace else." And so they turned to one another and said, "You debate the Tsar, you debate the Tsar, you debate the Tsar." But they all responded with things like, "Well, I was thinking of visiting my aunt in Chicago." Until finally, the only person in the village they had not asked was the shoemaker. And they turned to him, regrettably, because he wasn't very bright. And they said, "Would you debate the Tsar?" And the shoemaker said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." And so they brought him in front of the Tsar, and the Tsar looked at him and he said, "You, a simple shoemaker, will debate me, the Tsar of Russia?" Yeah, that's it." "All right," said the Tsar. And he said nothing. All he did was, to which the shoemaker did this. And the Tsar smiled at that. And then he went. And the shoemaker went. And the Tsar was taken aback. And he reached into his pocket and he pulled out a piece of cheese. And he held it up like this. And the shoemaker reached in his pocket and he pulled up an egg and he held it up like this. And the Tsar said, "That's it. He wins. You can stay." And then the Tsar got up and went back into the carriage. They put the steps up. The soldiers took down the tent and tied it to the backs of the horses. The trumpeters blew. And the procession rode out of town. Well, as it went down the road, the Tsar's minister came up beside his carriage and said to him, "Your Tsarness, I'm confused. What just happened?" And the Tsar said, for a simple shoemaker, his wisdom was incredible. "I began the debate by indicating that my power comes from above. But he reminded me we all return to the earth below. And I said, how do you get wisdom when these Jews are scattered like the fingers on my hand?" But he insisted wherever they are, they're united like a fist. I said, "United in what? A tradition old and moldy like a piece of cheese?" And he said, "No, they're united in a tradition that isn't yet fully born like an egg." I had to grant him victory. Back in the village, they gathered around the shoemaker and they asked the same question. "What just happened?" "I don't know. He began by saying he's going to punch me to the moon. And I said, I'll knock you down first. Then he tried to slap me. And I said, back off. And then He got all his lunch and I got all mine. And that is my story.